Hello, everyone. Welcome back to B-Team Analytics Podcast, your home for NBA analytics. And, I think everyone should be very excited that the Celtics won yesterday because if we went down 0-3, there's a very good chance I would just come on here and be like, welcome back to the podcast. This is your home for sadness and despair. But that's not what we have today. Celtics got themselves back into it, 2-1 or 1-2 now, in favor of New York, and we can have an exciting podcast. So a lot to talk about. I think the only spoiler alert, I don't think I'm going to touch the first round much. I think we got through most of that already. The one thing I had to say, just so everyone's caught up, if for some odd reason you listen to my podcast and don't watch the NBA, the Golden State Warriors did end up beating the Houston Rockets in Game 7, a very exciting game. I don't think I'm going to touch that too much. The Golden State Warriors did advance and are playing the Minnesota Timberwolves in the second round now. So, with all that being said, I'm excited. Let's jump into the second round and talk about these series. So just like a quick overview summary, another quick overview summary of the second round so far, kind of my initial thoughts. A good place to start, the home court advantage is probably dead here, which is shocking to see. I'm working on the side right now trying to put together kind of an analysis on home court advantages in the NBA playoffs so far. And hopefully that might either come out in next week's episode or maybe like a midweek kind of episode, because I'm very interested to kind of look into, why this is, what's really happening with these, big leads that are these home court advantages that are going away, because most of it in recent history, home court advantage was huge, It was like monumental to steal a game on the road, but nowadays, right now, Cleveland, Indiana, and then the Celtics-Knicks series, not a single team has won at home so far. We're through 3 games, and not one home team has won. So, very interesting dynamics to kind of see here. Same thing with the Oklahoma-Denver series and Minnesota and Golden State series. Not a lot of home teams are taking advantage of home court advantage. So that should be some fun analysis just to kind of dive in and see whether it's a changing trends, is it the three-pointer, is it kind of like leads aren't safe anymore, are the refs calling it lighter, stuff like that I'll probably dive into some of that analysis. Initially for me, I think just kind of watching the games, these away teams are able to get momentum going quickly, A lot of times you're on the road, the momentum can be, halted with some crowd noise or stuff like that. Nowadays, I think it might be a little bit of the three-pointer. You can get on these quick 9-0 runs with just 3 baskets, when before it would take, 4 or 5 possessions to get to that similar point. So, definitely something to look at, and potentially, like I said, we'll have a little episode on that later this week, maybe for next episode as well. So, with that being said, let us jump into the first series. Obviously, Celtics bias will prevail. We'll jump into this Celtics-Knicks series because I think it's definitely a fun thing to talk about, especially with, how bad the last, couple days have been for me, just with the emotions rolling through it. So, to note, like I said, the New York Knicks are leading 2-1. Still 2 games in Boston, but Boston did come back and won a game at New York. Game 3 was 115-93. In the first 2 games, Boston did blow 2 20-point leads in late second half sort of series. Game 1, I think it was about third quarter. They started charging back. Game 2 was even later. I think it was almost near the start of the fourth quarter, maybe mid-fourth quarter time, they started cutting that lead down. And, finally, Game 3, they just decided, hey, let's not, blow a 20-point lead like we've been doing. And a lot of it's had to come down to New York is a very, very good team. They are. And you can see if you get this New York team into a clutch time situation, they are hard to beat. And we saw that in both game 1 and 2. This Knicks team doesn't make mistakes. Jalen Brunson, I think, turns on this gear that makes him impossible to miss a shot. Every single time that dude touched the ball went into the basket somehow. It just baffled my mind to watch him play, and it's just such great basketball this New York team can get to. On the other hand, Boston had 2 historically awful shooting games for them. Through the first 2 games of the playoffs, or the second round here, they shot a combined total, let me do the math here, combined total of about 27-ish% from three-pointers, which, historically bad for this Celtics team. And it just kind of shows, hey, and this is, more Celtics bias coming out here, of course. When this team is playing okay, Game 3 we played decently, is all I can say. We didn't play great, we didn't play awful, we just played okay. And we beat the Knicks by 20 points. So it takes these really awful games for the Celtics for, other teams to have a chance. The problem with the Celtics is they really love to have awful games. And for the first time in a while, honestly, in that Game 3, I saw Celtics hesitating to shoot the ball. It was weird. There were multiple points in that game. Jaylen Brown got the ball. Looked like it was perfect Celtics basketball. He caught a pass off of a roll. Perfect time to just catch and shoot, and he, hesitated for once. First time I've seen this in, 2-3 years. I honestly sat back and was like, that's crazy. That's the most crazy thing I've ever seen this Celtics team do. Pass up an okay shooting 3. And that really stirred from those first 2 games where, it wasn't like they were taking awful shots. I think I saw a stat, they have, player tracking data, which personally to me, I would love to get my hands on that data. That data would be so fun to look at. Obviously, I'm stuck with StatHead, which is great. Don't get me wrong, great. It doesn't get me player tracking data, unfortunately. But of those, I believe the stat was for the first, or Game 1, at least. And it was a similar trend in Game 2 as well. They were just missing wide open 3-pointers. It was just straight up, just like that, missed wide open 3-pointers. And it's just one of those luck of the draw things that, happen one in a million sort of games that just happen to happen 2 games in a row sort of thing. So definitely frustrating as a Celtics fan to see just, abysmal shooting. But at the end of the day, they came back Game 3, they actually hit consistent shots, finished the game, 20 for 40 from 3-pointers, 50% on the day, shooting almost, it was about 48% from the field as well. All in all, kind of a rebound sort of game. When you're talking, energy, the momentum of the series, I think, while New York is kind of up 2-1 still, I think that was definitely a momentum stopper for the Knicks. I think just kind of looking at it, you can be like, oh, this Boston team remembered, hey, we have to play basketball here. It's going to be much harder to beat this team. And you saw that. We came out, I think, apart from garbage time, in the second half, they didn't didn't bring the lead under 20 points the entire time. So, definitely, there it is again. Definitely interesting to see how this playoff series continues. Like I said, I was thinking about this the other day as well, ranking my favorite games in order. So 7-game series. What are my favorite games in those series? And this was kind of a list I came up with. Obviously, Game 7. Game 7 is unmatched. upon any game in the series. My second favorite, I think, has to be Game 4, because a lot of the time you're coming into it 2-1 to, whichever way the game is kind of, or whatever, whatever team's winning sort of thing. You either, if the team with the person leading the series, wins 3-1, that's basically a death sentence to the other team. Or if you tie it up 2-2. So it's one of the most pivotal games in the series, because it's either, hey, we're done after this, or, we have a best of 3 sort of series. So that's why I think Game 4 is probably one of the best games. Just to kind of round up, I just wanted to make that point to rant about Game 4s, because I always loved a good Game 4 sort of thing. So yeah, to round out the list, I think you gotta go Game 1 as 3. Just, new series, gotta come out hot, come out, show the team hey, we're here to play. Next, I have to go Game 3. Moving locations, you're either, most of the time, if you're the road team, you're finally back at home. In past years, you probably, down 0-2, have to win a couple games at home. Nowadays, obviously, it's not the case. Probably next would be Game 6. Win or go home for one team. Close out game for the other. Always, fun basketball. Game 5 would be next, and then Game 2, I think no one cares about Game 2 most of the time. That's kind of, just a little random, ad hoc sort of list there, but I just was thinking about that the other day while doing some other things, so I thought I'd share that. So with that, I think that's probably it on the Boston-New York series. Obviously, just to kind of touch on a couple things here, Jalen Brunson really, really carrying this team like he always does. Obviously, Jalen Brunson's the best player on this team. He's doing his job. 24 points, 6 assists, a steal a night basically at this point. Really kind of holding this team together, especially in those times where they, came back, 20 points. A lot of that was spurred by Jalen Brunson kind of shot making during those periods. So definitely leading the team. Karl Anthony Towns as well. I've always been a little wishy-washy on him. I think he's a great player, but just, tendencies he has, whether it's, he's a tall dude. He's 7-footer, but a lot of the times I don't think he plays like a 7-footer should. Not saying, in this NBA you need to play like this, but I think a lot of the times he's making it more difficult than he should. I think, you have a lot of opportunities to just face the basket and shoot it. He's doing a lot more fadeaway actions, which I don't think is necessary a lot of the time. But, he's holding it down for the team as well with 18 points and 15 rebounds a game. So, he's playing that sort of role, but I think he can have a little bit more of an impact, especially with the Celtics playing a lot more two big lineups. I think, Karl Anthony Towns is kind of big to kind of shut down at least one of those to make it a little bit more interesting. But I think that's the major stuff on this series. I think next, let's go ahead and jump to the Indiana series, Indiana-Cleveland. Alrighty, so this series is another series, Indiana-Cleveland, that a home team hasn't won a game yet. And, death to the home court advantage. This is really an interesting one because Cleveland has been pretty dominant at home all year, but this Indiana team just kind of, I don't know if it was sped them up a little bit, made them play a quicker game because Indiana is one of the more quick teams in the NBA, and it really kind of showed in these games. Game 1, 121-112 against, or 112 in Game 1. This was really kind of a win by committee for Indiana. Top to bottom, their starting lineup, Andrew Nembhard with 23 points. You had Tyrese Halliburton with 22, Siakam with 17, Miles Turner with 13 points, 11 rebounds. near double-double. Tyler Halliburton also had a double-double, 22 points, 13 assists. Aaron Sneesmith as well, 17 points. So really just a kind of committee game for this team, All, 1 through 6 basically scored in double figures for these guys. Other contributions all the way down the list as well. So definitely just like a win by committee. For Cleveland, I think it's really for them, Darius Garland. Darius Garland's still hurt for this team. He is listed as a sprained left toe. A lot of the time, it's probably honestly a sprained left toe. Maybe, and that's kind of one of those injuries that potentially they just say that. That's what makes me bring it up. Celtics, when Al Horford, he doesn't play back-to-backs during the regular season, so they would put sprained left toe as one of the injuries. It's kind of a cover-up sort of thing. So, potentially it is a sprained left toe, and that could really suck because, that's where all your planting comes from, is that big toe as well. So, that's probably just kind of a pain management injury, and if it makes you sit out 3 games of a playoff series, it must be that bad sort of thing, especially for a guy like Darius Garland. He's not just going to sit out because why not sort of thing. So, definitely hurting without his presence out there. But this was one, you had the other guys definitely stepped up. You have, Donovan Mitchell, leading scorer in the series so far, with 33 points. Evan Mobley as well, 20 points. And then Ty Jerome with 20 points as well. After that, it got a little lax. You had Max Strus with 7, Sam Morrell with 6. After that, DeAndre Hunter as well with 11 points. So not fantastic output amongst the team. And I think that kind of momentum really helped Indiana just get into the game, get into the series quickly. You took one on the road. The series doesn't start till someone wins on the road. And they eventually took 2 games at home. And that really kind of spurred what this Indiana team is doing. Quickly moving to game 2, this was a fantastic game. This is, for me, I think so far the playoffs, one of the best games, just because of the shock factor. Like, I'm sitting here, I'm watching the games. There's only one game on at a time now, so I had the game on, and there was like maybe a minute or 2 left in the game. Cleveland was like up 6 or something. Yeah, with 57 seconds left, Donovan Mitchell hit a second free throw to go up 119 to 121. And by this point, I'm like, okay, whatever, game's over. I'm kind of scrolling on my phone. Next thing I know, Aaron Nesmith, 2-point bucket. I'm like, okay, cool, interesting. Donovan Mitchell commits a offensive foul. Basically, it was one of those, kind of ran into the guy and kind of like shoved off with his arms. Definitely an offensive foul. You could have probably called it no call. They did review it, did stand. So, offensive foul there. Same thing, came down. Pascal Siakam, 2-point bucket. And by this point, I'm like, okay, stuff is happening here. Like, what's going on? They come down again. They're trying to pass the ball in. Max Strus turns over the ball. Aaron Nimhard steals it. They come down. Tyrese Halliburton has the ball, gets fouled. I'm like, okay, by this point they're up. Yeah, they're up 2, 117, 119. I'm kind of like, I'm locked in now. I'm like, this is amazing. Like, you don't see these kind of comebacks in a playoff game. Just an absolute destruction for these guys. He makes the first, ends up missing the second, and then gets his own rebound. On a free throw, he gets his own free throw, comes down, drills the game-winning three-pointer, like top of the key. It was a beautiful shot. You knew it the minute it came out of his hands that was going in. And then they won the game, 121 120, 119, and it was a complete blow up on Cleveland's side. Reckless play through and through. This was just one of those you just kind of have to look at and be like, okay, clean up. You had, was that offensive foul and a turnover in the last two possessions. If you just hold on to the ball, you win that game. And that, give props to Indiana's defense. They've had, a really good defense all year. Kind of one of those sneaky defensive teams. You really don't think about it, but they really do. Came out and had a great game. This was even on top of a Donovan Mitchell 48-point game. So, they're doing all this, letting him score, and, they still won. Of note, this was DeAndre Hunter and Evan Mobley were both hurt this game, so missing, three key guys. But also, you've done all that work the entire game. You played 47 minutes of great basketball without these guys, and ended up just throwing it away by two guys who, typically play. Donovan Mitchell, your, superstar, and Max Strus, who, gets decent minutes. I'm not saying he's, top performer, but, he's a great player who's, been around the block on, championship, or not championship winning teams, but teams who've been, made good playoff runs as well. So, just an absolute blow up of epic proportions for this Cleveland team. And then they'd responded. I think that really kind of set a fire under them because they came out 126-104 win. DeAndre Hunter came back. You had Darius Garland back as well. And, you can kind of see, at full strength, hey, this team is really, really good. Evan Mobley was back, so a full team. This Indiana team's going to struggle a little bit. But, this first two games, you just got to win. You got to win at least one to not dig yourself in big holes. So, game 4 is tonight. I'm recording this Sunday, April 11th, tonight at 7 o'clock. And it sounds like, if I'm unmistaken, full roster for Cleveland. Yeah, full roster for the Cleveland this time. So I expect a very similar game as Game 3 here. I think Cleveland's just going to dominate. Unless, Indiana can slow them. They are at home. This is a big home game. At this point, you just need one at home to just seal it up, sort of thing. Take the 3-1 series lead. Another reason, Game 4s are really fun. This is really kind of a do-or-die game for both. Because if you're Indiana, you let this game up, all the momentum's back in Cleveland's hands. You've proven, hey, full strength, you're not beating this team. If you're Indiana, you can kind of put the nail in the coffin sort of thing on this series. You can lose one in Cleveland in Game 5, and then you have Game 6 as home sort of thing. So, this is another series I'll be watching pretty closely just because of the intensity that I've seen in both play. Both of them, sneaky good teams you don't think about a lot. They don't have those flashy, really good guys, but they play really well together sort of thing. So, definitely a fun series to watch here. Alrighty, moving on to the Western Conference. I think we're going to start with the Oklahoma City-Denver game because series, because the Game 4 just wrapped up 5 seconds ago. So I thought that'd be a great place to start off with. So, Thunder currently tied with Denver 2-2. This is another one. They split both home games so far. So they've won one on the road, won one on the home. That made sense. I'm going to keep that in there. This is one very back and forth sort of series. Denver taking game 1, very close game 1. It came down to game-winning score by Aaron Gordon, a beautiful three-pointer. Chet Holmgren, they were up. What is that? Yeah, they were up 1. Denver had the foul. They fouled Chet Holmgren. Chet Holmgren finds a way to miss both free throws. Missed 1 of 1, or 2 of 2. They grabbed the rebound, came down. Russell Westbrook had it. You're driving down. I'm like, Russell Westbrook's going to miss this shot. This is easy win for Oklahoma City. He made the smart play finally. Past Darren Gordon, beautiful shot, went in. Crowd didn't go crazy because it was a road game, but a fantastic Game 1 win. Just to be led up by an absolute beatdown in Game 2 with a 149-106 win in Game 2. That was just, a beatdown. That's what a lot of these series for Denver has been. They win a good close game, get beat down the next game sort of thing. So, trend kind of continued. Game 3, 113-104 win at home. And then Game 3. Game 4 was a pretty close game, very low scoring game in this one. 92-87 win for Oklahoma City Thunder. This is one, I think this is easily going to be a 7-game series. I don't think either of these teams are going to let up anytime soon. And, it's been, a series of MVP matchups. Obviously, apart from Game 2, Game 3, 4, Game 1, 3, and 4 have been, relatively close. Shea with 28, 9, and 7. And then Jokic with 26, 15, 6. So, MVPs are really showing out. For Oklahoma City, you're getting great productions from Jalen Williams with 21, 4, and 5. Chet Holmgren's doing his thing, 15 and 11, really kind of playing that big man role for them still, grabbing every rebound he possibly can. And then I've also liked Isaiah Hartenstein in this game as well. He's not, absolutely contributing at all ends, but you can kind of see, he's kind of been, I wouldn't say a difference maker, but he's kind of, had a little bit of the pace or that extra little that they've needed in their two wins so far. As well, going to Denver, Jamal Murray, I think he's such an interesting guy because during the regular season, you could arguably say he's barely an all-star. Come playoff time, this dude is the greatest player of all time. He's prime Michael Jordan. 96, 97 Jordan, basically. And, completely lifting this team to, the 2 wins they've had so far. Other players, Russell Westbrook taking up a really good 6-man role for this Denver team. He's, kind of wishy-washy still as well. Scoring, 15 points, 1 rebound, 3 assists. But, he does have a very reduced role on the team. When they need it, he's still very quick. And on that game-winning shot they had, he was, running up that court as quick as possible, and it just looked like a flash out there. So very quick, can really speed up this Oklahoma City team. But like I said, not playing as many minutes as he used to, sort of thing. Another note as well, Michael Porter Jr. is actually playing through injury. He has he's playing through it, but a shoulder injury. All they're really describing right now is shoulder pain, but typical rest for this is about 4 to 6 weeks. But, he's wrapped up, he's got tape all over his shoulder, and he's still playing very efficiently. 10 points, 5 rebounds, barely an assist a game. Slightly down from his regular season total of 18, 7, and 2. So slightly down, but, you are playing through a serious shoulder injury. But still playing really, really great. I don't think he's lost a step too much. And, still contributing at a pretty high level for this team. overall, this is another fun series to kind of keep an eye out for. These are two equally matched teams. I didn't think Denver would make it. I knew Denver would be good. I knew they would take a good run at this, and I do have Denver over Oklahoma City in this series. I didn't think they would look as good as they do right now, especially coming off of a very long 7-game series. They're really giving this Oklahoma City team a run for their money. And you can see it in the guys. This Denver team loves playing together. You can see it on the court. You can see it, in huddles and all that. The other day you had, I saw a video come up, Russell Westbrook talking to the guys, a little more veteran presence. You have Jokic out here basically coaching the team. These guys are playing very well together, and you can see it through and through. And I think that experience, and this is all I'm saying, this is the same thing, you hear across the NBA all the time, experience wins. This Oklahoma City team doesn't have the experience, but the Thunder are the better team. Clearly, by and far, are the better team, but this Denver team just is more consistent, I think is a good word of putting it, or a good way of putting it. They're more relaxed. They can take punches better than this kind of Oklahoma City team can. Especially, you lost by, 40-ish points. Came back, won the next game at home, sort of thing. And this, like I said, easily 7-game series, sort of thing. I think they're going to go back to Oklahoma City tied 2-2. And I think it's just going to be split till Game 7 at Oklahoma City. And I think Denver can pull it out. I do think they can steal one at home, or one on the road against this Oklahoma City team. If you get it down to a close game, I think Denver prevails most of the time. In the final series, let's talk about Golden State versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is another one that's been pretty split, and it really all kind of has to come down to one major factor. Steph Curry is out currently with a grade 1 hamstring sprain, and it's sounding like minimum, so he's missed Game 2, or the injury happened about mid to late Game 1. It looked pretty ugly. He just kind of planted weird, just kind of grabbed the back of his hamstring, hobbled to the back, and that was it for him. Since then, so Golden State did take Game 1, 99-88, pretty commanding win for those guys. After that, 117-93 win on the road, or at home for Minnesota. And then they ended up also taking Game 3, 102-97. This Golden State team, without Curry, still, fighting their hardest out here. Jimmy Butler really carrying the team, 23 points. Jonathan Kuminga and Buddy Hield also falling very close behind with about 17 points. So this team really still is, trying their best. But, they're just coming up short these last couple games. For game 2, I think this was just kind of a beatdown on Minnesota front. You had great scoring from Julius Randle, Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards, 24, 28, and 16 respectively. Great production by Alexander Walker as well with 20. For Golden State, it was pretty top heavy. Jimmy Butler 17, Buddy Hield with 15, leading scorer for them Jonathan Kuminga with 18, Jackson Davis as well with 15. Kind of very top heavy. Really no scoring after that. You have Draymond Green with 9 points. Moses Moody with 3 points, and that's pretty much anyone who didn't play in garbage time. So just lack of that offensive presence, kind of shown as well in Game 3. They looked a little bit better in this game, but first half didn't make a single three-pointer. This was first time Golden State hasn't made a three-pointer in the first half since I think it was like 2007. This was like pre Splash Brothers sort of days. So it is well back in time. Another kind of just historically bad night for them. This one led up 36 points from Anthony Edwards, Julius Randle with 24 as well. On the other side, Jimmy Butler, playoff Jimmy in full effect here with 33, and then Jonathan Kuminga with 30, and then after that, pretty much single digits for everyone else. So just the biggest problem with this is just they're not scoring. They're playing decent defense. They're making it pretty hard for this Minnesota team to score. Obviously, it's not working, but you can kind of see this Minnesota team is a little frustrated at times on the offensive end. But, other than that, they're holding it together very well during this series. So, overall, this is a fun one. I think without Curry, I think this is kind of a wash of the series. Game 4 is tomorrow night, pivotal for Minnesota to, take that 3-1 series lead. It sounds like minimum, I think Curry's going to be out for at least 2 more games if it goes that far, or it will go that far. Let me double check the injury report here. Yeah, so it says here expected out till at least May 18th. So that would take you well into the conference finals. So you're pretty much out of this series. Unless I think Game 7 would be on the 18th, if my math is adding up correctly. So I think this is pivotal for the Timberwolves to just get this done quick, because you're going to have a next round series against either a really good Denver team, who I think you match up a little bit better with, or Oklahoma City, who, by and far, one of the best teams in the NBA this year. So if you can get some time where you can rest up, get ready, scout game plan for these 2 really good teams, I think you have to take it. So I think, like I said, Game 4, very pivotal. If you can just put the nail in the coffin now, you have home court advantage, which is wild to say as a 6th seed, but you have home court advantage. If you can just steal 1 more here on the road, you have Game 5 at home, win it there. This is minimum going 6 for the Denver series. So you have, Game 6, if I'm unmistaken, would be on Friday. You could wrap it up on Thursday. Or no, you could wrap it up. Yeah, you could wrap it up on Wednesday the 14th. That would be, 2 extra days of rest. Added on top of that, if it goes Game 7, you could get about a week's of rest before this conference championship game, which leads you perfectly into the NBA playoffs. If you can get that rest, get your guys scouted, ready to go, head into that strong, especially if, a Denver team has to go through 2 grueling 7-game series to get to that point. So overall, fun series. I said it a lot. This has been one of the better playoffs, and I think that's where we'll wrap up the episode with just kind of revealing. I saw a really good article this weekend about the viewership, at least for round 1. I don't think we have too much on viewership at round 2. At the end of round 1, the cable TV is up 6% from last year. So I've been trying to say, the NBA really just isn't dead. We're just the first half of the season, and national TV did end down 2%. But Adam Silver came out and said it like, hey, we were pushing up against a lot of good programming in the start of the season. You had World Series, political debates, all that sort of ran up against that. So to only be down 2% should be viewed as a win. On top of that, you had one of your best first round of the playoffs in a while. So you had to assume, like, hey, if it's not up now, yes, it's concerning. But across all platforms, it was up 6%, which is great. The Game 7 of the Golden State Houston was a record-breaking round 1 Game 7 of all time. I think It was the highest viewership since it was Chicago versus Celtics in 2009, round one. Viewership games. All in all, you had great viewerships. Game 4, Lakers Timberwolves draw in 7.4 million people. Game 1, Celtics versus Magic drew 6.7 million. The NBA is still getting viewership, especially on a lot of these games. I'm intrigued to see it because the second round has been really good. I think people coming off the momentum of seeing this first round might tune into more games. You have a lot of quality marquee matchups, like Celtics Knicks historic rivalry. You have MVP series with Denver and Oklahoma City. So I'm interested to see if the second round is also up, because that's a good indicator. Like, hey, the NBA is still kind of back, sort of thing. So, with all that being said, I think we're gonna wrap it there. Thank you everyone for watching, and just right after we talked about viewership numbers, I hope you watched an NBA game.